Oh hi, I didn't see you there. My name is Bliss Foster, and today we will be covering what really happened during Gucci Resort 2022. This show carries newsworthy importance for two different reasons. One, Gucci is turning 100 this year, and two, this might be the most commercially important collaboration of all time. Either way, it's pretty massive because both Balenciaga and Gucci are under the Kering label. Alessando and Demna have joined forces to bring us this presentation. As I discussed in great length in my two-part analysis of Gucci Fall Winter 2018, Alessandro's Gucci kind of can't help but be extremely elaborate and layered in everything that they do. The invitation for this show alone was a 34-page activity book. This runway show is presented as a short film, which has become the standard for most fashion brands since COVID hit. Directed by Michele and Floria Sigismondi. Floria is a film director responsible for music videos for The White Stripes, for Sigaros, and for the high goddesses of fashion, Bjork and Rihanna. At its core, this show is honoring both the centennial of Gucci and the collaboration with Demna through its theme of rebirth, ideas moving and evolving over time. In the show notes, Alessandro quotes the English poet Emily Dickinson when she said in a letter, "Nature is a haunted house, but art is a house that tries to be haunted." Dickinson was a pretty legendary letter writer, and her correspondences are often cited as part of her overall body of artistic work. Let's move around here a little bit. So Michele is taking this quote and redirecting it towards the cycle of death and rebirth that is not only natural, but necessary in order for nature to exist. We will return to that in a second. The short film opens with a shot that says Savoy Club, which is a multifaceted reference. Gucci points out in their show notes that the Savoy is a direct reference to Gucci's history. The original founder, Guccio Gucci, whose full name is this. Guccio moved from his home in Florence to London, where he worked at the Savoy Hotel as a bellhop, which apparently helped him to understand the needs and the preferences of the wealthy, which would help him in founding his business 25 years later. The Savoy is also, and I think more importantly, a reference to the Savoy Ballroom in Harlem, New York. This club was a hotbed for, and many would argue, the birthplace of swing in the late 20s and early 1930s. Gucci is fully embracing and revving us up for this post-pandemic party mode, which can be most clearly seen by the way that they represent the show on the Vogue Runway app using only GIFs and no images. So brazenly chaotic that you know it was purposeful. Doesn't Gucci just look like a dad to you, by the way? Get some sleep, kids. We have a big day at the lake tomorrow. And if the tone of this show is to be believed, then we're about to enter one of the most bacchanalian eras of human history. And the Savoy Ballroom is a really fitting inspiration for the show in that way, because the club's ecstatic partying was largely a response to the Great Depression. The Savoy's influence goes much further than just the general aesthetics of this show. Look for is a direct pull from the suit worn by the Savoy's resident band's drummer, William Henry Webb, who's like the great-grandfather of legendary drumming. Let's keep it moving. Do you like how I just picked the one aesthetically pleasing corner of this room? We had to move like all of this stuff around because the basement flooded and the furniture is everywhere. Episodes like this are only able to exist because of the people that support the channel on Patreon. When you do that, you get exclusive content like a Sakai episode. I have a second undercover episode. I have a Margiela episode that's an exclusive one. You get extended episodes for a lot of the runway analyses. And you also get to join the best fashion community on the internet, my private Discord server. So this is pretty typical for a Gucci show, right? We often see Alessandro Michele reaching back into a period like this and then bombarding us with his signature style of frantic, chaotic, glorious mood boarding. From doing that analysis of Fall Winter 2018, I regularly had 200 tabs or more open while I was trying to research that in an effort to pinpoint every little nuanced thing that they had. But at this point, I much more prefer just sitting back and enjoying the really crazy outfits that end up coming out of everything rather than trying to identify every single reference that's being used. But there is this marked difference between this show here and the shows that Michele has done in the past. Here, the soundtrack is bursting with rap songs that make direct references to Gucci, like Rick Ross and Bad Baby and the president of the Young Republicans Club, Lil Pump. So is this a commercial move? Yes, undoubtedly. But the best commercial moves are ones that tie into larger themes and narratives, and that's what I believe this is doing, not with the Young Republican thing. Gucci has changed and evolved so much over the course of its 100-year history. I mean, who would have thought that this guy's leather bags for wealthy equestrians would turn into one of the most recognizable luxury brands of all time? I mean, Papa Guccio would have never guessed that his product would have ended up becoming a pillar of reference for youth culture music. It's pretty crazy. But things thrive when they change and evolve, hence the main theme of the collection. The Balenciaga presence in this show can be felt much deeper than just these very inevitable logo mashup pieces that they did. And I mean, this one here is much more than just a piece that says Gucci and Balenciaga on it. This is Balenciaga's hourglass suit for women. The staging for this runway show is very notably Balenciaga. We can see that in Balenciaga's former shows. We can see that in their advertisements. I'm bored again. Let's move. The references to the Balenciaga collaboration can be seen in some more symbolic ways as well. This outstanding looking bag is likely a reference to the traditional Catholic symbol of the Sacred Heart. They likely went one further on this bag to represent another traditional Catholic symbol of the alliance of the Sacred Hearts of Jesus and Mary, because, Alessandro Michele's Catholic grandma is going to smack him in the head when she finds out about that. We also see lots of references to Gucci's past through horse things. We see horse things in this bag that looks like stirrups. We see the harnesses of horse riding shoes reflected in a BDSM type of way in these strange torso harness accessory things. And speaking of BDSM, we can also see lots of whips. Thanks, Demna. We can also see other stuff that seems to be like a reference to other horse riding accoutrements like this that kind of looks like a horse muzzle. Maybe one of those strap-on feeder things. Okay, it is immediately too hot in this room. I so regret coming in here. Despite there being a lot of references to Gucci's past, Alessandro still leaves a lot of himself in this show, like we can see here where the heavy influence of southern India and Sri Lanka is still left in with these long septum ring things. We also see a great deal of Tom Ford in this show. Tom came into Gucci and essentially saved the company when he was appointed as the creative director in the 90s. The opening look of this show is essentially a remake of the legendary Tom Ford red velvet tuxedo from Fall/Winter 96. We also see some garment remakes and some styling decisions that were copied from the legendary, kind of the landmark show of Tom Ford, Fall/Winter 1995, in the way that this here is unbuttoned. And that last one can feel a little coincidental if you don't consider that for people who are a little bit older than me, these images are burned into their fashion consciousness. We also see a flip on the bamboo handle bag, which was one of the hallmarks of the Tom Ford era and was itself a flip on one of the original Gucci bags that they released in 1947. This is one of the most prevalent places where we see the show's stated themes taking place. The rebirth of imagery and craft through new voices. In the show notes, Alessandro calls this a jubilee of rebirth. Just by breathing, by existing, you're taking in the world and you exhale to make your small mark on it. In the show notes, Alessandro quotes Spanish philosopher Maria Zambrano when she refers to this kind of phenomenon as an endless birth. Did you like this show? Was this the collaboration that you wanted? Would you have rather seen Demna and Alessandro work together in a different way? Let me know in the comments. Also, go join the Patreon. I can only do stuff like this because of support from people like you. There are so many people that have joined the Patreon. It's an incredible community of wonderful, encouraging, very knowledgeable people. It's well worth signing up for. You can click the link that is somewhere on the screen right now. My DMs are always open on Instagram specifically, so if you ever want to talk, just reach out and say hi and I'll start a conversation with you. All right, sweet, thanks, bye.